to meet you.
Everybody's here?
Yep.
Let's start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Michelle, we don't have anything other than Mr. Albeck.
You're lateral. We have two hearings scheduled tonight, and we're going to take Krzyzbowski first. Who's here on that? And then we're going to take Roba Family Farms. Are you Ben?
I am.
Do you have anyone else here who's going to testify for you, Ben?
No.
Just you. Is there anyone here who has an interest in the Krzyzbowski application, either for or against it? No? Okay. Have you ever been in front of the zoning board before?
No, I haven't.
Okay. It's, they all had dinner before they came up, so they're satiated. You're not worried about it. What we do is we have Carl first explain why it was necessary for you to come in and ask for a variance. Right? And then if you have any questions of Carl, you're free to ask them. If you disagree with anything he says, then it's your turn to speak. Okay? You just explain what it is you want to do. We have an idea from looking at the paperwork and talking to Carl. And then if there is anyone from the audience who decides they want to participate and ask questions, somebody might ask you a couple of questions. Okay? And you have to keep your voice up because we have to keep a stenographic record of everything, not so that don't register, so they have to be verbal responses.
Okay.
All right. So why don't we start then by asking the two witnesses, Carl and you, Ben, raise your hands so you can be sworn in. Okay?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, Carl, you want to lay it out?
Yes. This is an application by Mr. Krzyzbowski of 145 Peaceful Valley Road to build a garage, residential parcel use garage on an empty lot adjacent to the parcel that his house is situated on. He owns both parcels, but they are on separate deeds. He had come to see me, we discussed it. I explained that he needed to combine the lots, and in checking with his bank, he found out to do that, he would have to refinance the loan, and the closing cost would have been like $5,000, and it would have cost an additional $36,000 over the life of the loan. So here we are for the variance. The cost was prohibitive for to refinance just to build the garage. They are, as I said, adjacent lots on Peaceful Valley Road. They are situated next to each other. I really don't see an issue with it, provided that at some point in the future they're combined, either if he sells or refinances or whatever. They could be sold separately later. So failing that, I don't see an issue with it.
Okay, and it was
advertised,
posted.
posted.
Okay. And do you have any questions of Carl?
I do not.
Okay. Has he said anything you disagree with?
No, I do not.
Okay. Do you want to explain to the board what it is you're doing with this proposal?
Yeah, just like Mr. Ferraro said, I own both lots adjacent to each other. My house is on one. I first pursued the avenue of combining the two. When I went to my bank, they would not allow me to change the deed without refinancing the property that my house is on, which by the time, was approximate $5,000 in closing costs to redo the deeds and title insurance on both properties. Then the current loan rates, I'm 8 or 9 years into my current loan, the approximate difference in the loan rate is another around $36,000, $37,000 over the lifetime of the loan. And then that doesn't even include additional costs like surveying both properties and a new map and all that, which in either case I would have had to done, if I combined the property.
How long is the term on your mortgage? Is it 20 or 30 years?
30 years.
30-year mortgage. Carl explained to you why you needed a variance to do this, because I'm trying to find a way to avoid legal speak and explain it to you. When you own a piece of property, there are restrictions on what you can use it for. Something that you can automatically do, you have a right to do, like build a house on a residential lot. It's called a principal permitted use. A garage is something which is incidental to the principal use, so we call it an accessory use. You can't have a standalone accessory use. Okay, so he couldn't give you a permit to put the garage on the lot, even though it's right next to the house that you own. And I understand what you're saying, because I've had this situation representing clients of my own. You have Wells Fargo as your lender? Yeah. They insist on having you come in and refinance the mortgage. They just won't let you add a deed to what you already own and include it in the existing mortgage, all the more so because they're probably getting a better rate if you have to do that now, right? The rate would be higher?
It would be higher.
Yeah, okay. So that's the reason why you had to come in and ask for a variance. Now, what the board has done in the past is to place a condition or a restriction on the variance so that when you get to the point where either you're going to have to refinance the mortgage or you're going to go sell the house. If you're going to sell the house, at that point you have to sell and merge both lots. Or if you're going to refinance the mortgage, or if you pay it off at that point, you have to merge both lots so that you have one description and you have the house, which is the principal permitted use, and the garage, which is the accessory use, on one deed, on one legal description. Does that sound okay to you?
Yes, that sounds fine.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
What are you going to use the garage for?
Just my vehicles,
You're not going to have a business or anything like that?
No, it's purely personal use. I have a truck. It just the garage in my house is like 15 foot long. It just doesn't, it doesn't even fit the truck or the garden tractor.
So this is just for your personal
use.
Is it a garage or a pole barn?
It's a garage. Yeah, it's planning to be a garage. Yeah.
Did you buy both of these parcels together, or?
I did not. I bought the original one. Oh God, maybe 15 years ago, and then I bought the other piece maybe about 7 or 8 years ago.
How big are they? Are they an acre or?
I think they're both like 1.1 acres,
Okay.
somewhere around
They
there.
meet the
You have two deeds attached to your application. They're both from 2012. Is that what the two parcels are?
Yeah.
One in March 9th, and the other is November 8th, 2012.
Yes. So in I don't know which came first. I got divorced in 2000.
Yeah, I see
in
you're the
2012.
grantor and the grantee on the earlier one. So as
Yes.
part of the divorce, there was the distribution of the house to you?
Yes.
Okay. And then you picked up the second lot that you want to put the garage in later that year?
I did, yes. Actually, that was an example of, so my ex-wife was she was on the deed, but not on the mortgage itself.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't let me change the deed, even though the mortgage wouldn't have changed. That was kind of the same situation, but
Yeah.
I had no choice but to refinance back then.
Well, technically, anytime somebody comes on or off the deed, or even if you were to try to add this second deed to the first one, there's a clause in every residential mortgage in Pennsylvania that says that's a transfer of an interest, which basically invalidates your mortgage and you have to go and refi it. So that's what you're having trouble with. I mean, if it was anybody but Wells Fargo, you might be able to get away with it, but they're tough,
Yeah.
as you found out.
I did.
Yeah.
I have a question, another question. Is that normal for lending institutions? Or is that?
It's normal for Wells Fargo. They're tough. PNC the same way. The local banks you can deal with. When you get the big national banks, they make you refinance the mortgage if you're going to do something like that. That's been my experience, at least on behalf of my clients.
And of course, especially if they're going to be able to bump your rate up.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm wondering is, would it be more beneficial if he went to another lending institution and have them pay off that? And But he got a better rate.
He's got a pretty good rate now.
If you don't mind just asking, what's the rate now?
It's like right around just 4%.
4%, yeah, he's not gonna get a better rate than that now.
Since the reasonable part.
Yeah. Well, they do that anyway.
Yeah.
They do that. Any other questions, sir? All right, anyone else? Jeff?
I know where the property's at, I know the location of the garage. There you cleared out, you had some brush piles and stuff there to clean up.
Yes, sir.
So you're okay with the restriction that says if you sell the property or if you're going to refinance the mortgage at that point, you're gonna have to consolidate
Yes, I
two
do.
lots. You can't sell one independently of the other.
Right, yes, I can do that.
All right.
Does the size of the garage, does that have any impact on it?
On the variance?
Yeah.
I think the only problem is, it's not the size of the garage, if I understood you correctly, it's the fact that it's an accessory use with no principal use on the same lot.
It doesn't, boundaries are okay and all
Yeah,
that?
there's no setback issues or anything like
No,
that.
he's got a full acre there, so,
Yeah.
you know.
The only variance being requested here is basically the law of accessory use independently of an existing principal permitted use. We had something like this
Plenty of room on the lot. so.
recently where we put the accessory in first with the understanding that the principal use was a house, I think he was gonna build. And he, oh, yeah,
So,
yeah, that's the one we had the last time, I did. He's put the pole barn up first to house his equipment to build his house.
What if he decides to sell that adjacent property with the garage on it? Can he,
So
this other parcel?
with the
With the
garage
garage on it?
No, what I suggested to him is that we put a restriction in the board's decision saying that he has to combine both lots or sell both lots together. So he can't fracture one off and sell.
You understand that?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Do you want to vote?
I'll vote yes.
Start with Mr. Sullivan.
Yes.
Mr. Bell.
Yes.
I'm yes.
Yeah.
All right, the board has voted yes to give you the variance, okay? 30 days from the date that the decision comes out, and we'll try to have it out quickly for you. Neighbors who may disagree have the right to appeal, so if you start construction of the garage and they take an appeal, you're starting at your own risk. Are you under any deadlines to get the construction in?
No, I'm not. I still have to apply for a permit.
Yeah. My thought is wait for the decision to come out and then wait 30 days before you start doing it. Okay. All right, thank you, Ben. We're finished with your hearing now, so
Okay.
you're free to leave.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and next we're going to call the Rolla Family Farms out. Who's here from Rolla? Looks like everybody in Rolla is here tonight. Okay. Now, is Rolla Family Farms a farm trust, a family farm trust? In other words, why is the application in the name of Rolla Family Farms? Are they the record holder?
That's our DBA.
Okay.
Okay, what's your name? Okay.
Oh,
You gotta
John
start with it.
Roba.
Yeah.
I just didn't know who was.
So, who's going to do the testifying tonight then for,
He knows more about it than I do.
All right, so-
I don't know much about it.
so you're Jack?
Jeff.
Oh, Jeff, and this is John, but only Jeff is testifying. Okay. And is there anyone here from the public who wants to take part in this application? Okay, Bob.
Not
Karen,
really, Karen,
Chicky.
I might want to say something.
Okay, and your name, ma'am, for the record?
Judy Fallon,
You need a spelling on that?
Faller.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, this is an application for, I'm going to call it a use variance. Would that be fair?
Yes, the board has established that limited wineries are a conditional use in RU zones.
Yeah, not an RD.
Right, and although it's an obvious agricultural use their property is, and it's probably the largest farm in the township is in an RD zone, so.
In the past, we had this come up twice. We also, in the alternative, considered it as a request for a determination.
Determination of the ordinance, because we don't cover wineries or
At least
craft
not-
breweries or anywhere, really, in our ordinance.
Did those two earlier decisions, did they go for conditional uses after the board ruled, or were they just
They
granted as
didn't
variances?
because they were granted as
As
variances, but in the last decision, I think you included also the interpretation that in an RU zone, they would be a conditional use in the future, because
Yeah.
we had, rather than everybody having to come for a variance, so we fixed that part then, and then a week later, the RD zone come up.
What do you think that they need to do? Should they ask for a variance, or should we treat this as a determination of the appropriate zone for them?
Yeah, I don't know that we can do just the zone, because their property is obviously much more similar to what you would expect to find in an RU zone than an RD zone.
Okay.
So if you make it in an RD zone, and the guy with a quarter-acre lot is also, so
So it would be more beneficial to the township to treat this as a variance rather than an interpretation on the assertion of the.
I would think, just because if it was made a conditional use in an RD zone, that now you've just got a lot of small lots and small,
Okay. So we're gonna treat this then as a use variance? To put a limited winery, I'm gonna call it a seasonal, I guess, it's gonna be a seasonal thing, 2 months out of the year if we're reading this. right?
Yes, yeah, we're currently open for the months of September, October.
On the farm.
Yep.
Okay.
To the public.
All right, well, let's have everybody who's going to testify raise their right hand so they can be sworn in then.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay, Carl, do you want to give us the background?
Yes. Jeff came to me about this, being a satellite location for a limited winery license owned by Precon Farms in Boyertown to manufacture and sell hard cider by the cup and bottle during September and October. It is an agricultural use, even if they don't manufacture it there. So it would be an agricultural use in keeping with the rest of their uses on their property. However, because our ordinance doesn't cover the winery issue, in the past we've come here for clarification. But their property is used for the Christmas trees and the pumpkins, and they do have customer traffic there during those seasons. But their uses are all agricultural, and this is very in keeping with what their current uses are. Excuse me, the advertisement was run properly, was posted.
Okay. Now, which of you guys is going to be the principal spokesperson, Jeff? Okay. You heard what Carl summarized. Do you disagree with any of that?
No.
Okay. Do you want to fill the board in on what it is this application is all about?
Sure. So I don't know how familiar you are with our operation up there, but we have a 15-acre apple orchard on top of the hill, along with Christmas trees and pumpkins that we grow for retail and wholesale. We'd like to partner with Precon Farms out of Boyertown. They are currently in possession of a limited winery license, and as part of that, they're allowed to license 5 satellite locations to sell their product throughout Pennsylvania. So we are applying with the PLCB right now to become one of their satellite locations, and we would be selling hard cider by the cup on Saturdays and Sundays for the months of September and October, and by the bottle as a walk-out item only. So it would be for purchase during the exit. You would not be able to buy it and then walk around the farm with it. So bottle sales on the way out Friday through Monday in the months of September and October.
Now, this winery in Boyertown, are they using your apples to make the cider?
No, this is their apples. It's their,
Okay.
Not this year, it probably will be.
yeah. For this current year, it is solely their apple product, but there's talk of basically us wholesaling apples to them to be pressed into sweet cider and then fermented into hard cider and then sold back to us as a hard cider product.
And that processing, if it occurred, it would take place off-site, I assume at their facility in
Yes.
Boyertown. They only have the one production facility.
Yes, they only have the one cidery down in Boyertown.
So presumably for the first year, would that be this year or next year?
This year,
This
yeah,
year.
we would like to hopefully get approval with the township and the PLCB to start sales for this year.
So you need a license from LCB?
We need to be licensed as a satellite location. We do not need
Okay.
a license.
I understand.
Yeah.
So for the first year, their product would be manufactured from other sources, other
From-
suppliers.
From their apples, yeah. They have an orchard as well that they.
And when you say partner with them, then what's your arrangement with the partner? They're just leasing the space, or is there some kind of a venture, a joint venture?
So the agreement is twofold, I guess, because they're making a custom blend hard cider for us, which has its own structure and sales agreement. And then we are also just retailing products that they already currently have, and that is a separate agreement. So on the custom blend, we are paying the upfront cost for them to manufacture, bottle, and get that up to us. We sell it, and whatever money is brought in from those sales stays with us.
Okay.
So it's a one-way transaction there. The pre-manufactured products that they already have in stock are coming to us, I guess you would call it on commission, so they're just stocking our shelves. We would sell it to the public. They would have access to our records. We send 100% of the sales back to them, including tax, and they would send us a 40% cut back as part of our cut of the sales.
40% of the net, I assume, after their expenses come out?
No,
No?
no, it's marked up enough that the 60% is.
Covers their costs.
It covers their costs and gives them, a significant enough profit to make it worth their while, and then we get the 40% of that.
So it's not really a joint venture then? You have two different contracts there. One to produce your own, call it name brand or branded product for you to sell?
It's still their product. It still has their brand on it. It does not, it is produced and distributed by Recon Farms, and will have their name on it. It is just with the PLCB, you can't relabel existing products that are already made, and we would like to have something with our name on it, so they have to make a new blend, new hard cider, and then we can put whatever label on it we would like.
Well, is that the one you talked about before where you front the production
Yes.
costs and it comes back to you? That will be branded or labeled?
Yes.
As well?
So, like I said, it still has, on the back in the fine print, it'll say produced and bottled by Recon Farms. The front will say whatever it is that we want to call it.
Okay. The second contract is you're just selling their product on consignment,
Correct.
sending all the revenue back to them, and then you get a piece of the action at the tail.
Yes.
If for some reason, Jeff, that agreement that you would have would be broken, I don't know if either party could break it or not, but if it was broken, you couldn't go on to somebody else and say, well, we're gonna use this guy's product, or not, because we're giving you a variance for this
particular venture?
I would think that would be up to you guys.
Well, right,
And
that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I mean, if we put that as a condition that, and if you did agree and it became a condition, if you and Boyer's Pre-Con Farm, I should say, separated,
Sure.
would you go someplace else to have the product made?
I think once we get the product into our customers' hands, we're not gonna wanna take away. So if things were to go south, or for whatever reason we decided to separate from Pre-Con Farms, I would think that we would still wanna go out and find another, similar farm that's producing a hard cider and bring their product in. Yeah, we find it difficult to take products away from customers once they.
So you're looking for a blanket variance? Is that what, is it in case, no matter who is gonna be the,
You know, if I can get it, yeah, I would say yes, because, you know, not only Free-Con, but, you know, there might be other, once we get established as a satellite location for one of these limited wineries, it's easy to then go and partner with other cideries in the state and sell their product as well, which I could foresee us even wanting to do in addition to Free-Con. Even if we did not separate from them, we might like to add other cideries as well.
So this is not an exclusive arrangement with this particular provider? You can go to somebody else and have a different type of...
Yeah, there's no agreement between us and Free-Con that says that we'll sell their product exclusively.
The winery licenses do allow even Maltesi's and Marley Winery in Cardinal. They sell craft beers as well as Pennsylvania manufactured sour mash and vodka. The limited wineries are allowed to do that stuff that they wouldn't be able to produce. They allow them to sell that stuff too. So be kind of a similar situation, I think.
And I guess one thing I would add as well, this is kind of a first step for us to test the waters as far as profitability of hard cider. If things were to go well, it is in our plans to eventually start producing ourselves and get ourselves licensed as a limited winery and produce hard cider ourselves. That would be, you know, a few years down the road, and assuming everything goes well, but full disclosure, I guess, we'd like that to be made aware.
Now, you're going to sell this out of an existing shed on the premises?
Yes, so if you've driven by lately, we have a 40 by 80 white surface tent up right now, and that is our retail space that we use during the season. Now, as part of the approval with the POCB for the satellite location, all alcohol has to be in its own building, and it has to be a lockable building. So we are constructing basically a small, I guess you would call it a shed. It's 10 by 14 under our retail tent that will basically be a separate building. It's just housed under the tent, and that'll have lockable doors. You know, when we leave for the day, everything gets locked up, and the product is held safely in there.
And the license for that location, assuming that the LCB grants you one, will it have the same limitation on it in terms of the operating hours that you just described to the board? In other words, the sales will only take place for, I guess it's Friday through Sunday, was it?
Friday through Monday on the bottles, Saturday and Sunday on coast. I don't know the answer to that. I would assume Free-Con Farms is licensed to sell all year round, and they do. I would assume that extends to us if we were licensed as a satellite location, because we're basically just an extension of them.
Who was the licensee? Is it Roba that's the licensee, or is it Free-Con? And they're simply, you will have basically a lease with them to provide them with space on your facility.
Free-Con is leasing space from us.
So Freecon will actually own the license that we're talking about?
Yes, the liquor license or the limited winery license.
For that particular location, they're entitled to 5,
Yes.
I'm going to call them off-site locations.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, and this is going to be one of their 5?
Yes,
So that license is issued to them, not to you?
yes.
And then are you going to have a separate written agreement with them? Besides the 2 production contracts you discussed a moment ago, you're going to have a separate written lease?
We do have
You do already have?
Yes.
Do you have that already, or is it?
We have it in place.
Okay.
And that's just going to be for 4 days. You said Freecon could sell basically the year round because you have a license.
Right.
But that's not what you're here for. You're here for 4
Yeah,
days.
our intent is only
4
to be
days.
selling during our orchard season, which is the 4 days a week for approximately 9 weeks.
How are you going to impose the 2-drink limit?
I actually read that on the way in, and I should have written that more clearly. The intent on that is to 2 cups per customer approaching the window, so they couldn't come up with a tray of, a blank tray and get 10 cups and walk away. It would be 2 cups per visit to the window.
Perhaps you'd be confused with 2 cups in your eye.
Yes, yeah, I realize that's not written as clearly as I would like.
Are there going to be any free samples distributed as part of this location? They can distribute free samples no more than an ounce.
Yes.
As well as sell product.
Yeah, so the intent is to, and what we're getting approved for as the satellite location is an 80-foot by 80-foot, what we're calling a cider garden area. So it'll be fenced in with a single entry point at the front of the garden that will be bounced 21 plus only inside that area. Once you're inside, you can walk to the building where it's being served, and if you would like a sample, yes, we'll be serving samples.
And this is what you expect to have in place for this year?
Yes. Yeah, the cider garden area along with the bottle sales that are in the retail tent.
Now, I was doing some background reading on limited wineries myself in anticipation of tonight's hearing. And I see where the wineries can partner up, 2 or more of them can sell from the same location. Do you have, in any of your agreements with the current proposed licensee, a restriction saying that they cannot bring in a second, I'm going to call it a partner, another limited winery to sell out of the same location? In other words, is your agreement restricted to them being able to come up here, and if you want to add somebody else later on, you can?
The agreement is that we have control over what is sold at the farm. So they can offer to bring in, like you're saying, a second winery, but it is up to us to decide if we want to accept that or not.
Okay, so it's not only what is sold, but who is producing what's being sold as well. So you feel that by controlling the product that can be sold at that location, you can control the producers who want to market out of that site?
Yeah. That and, the quality of the product. We don't want to just be selling any old thing there.
And so if I can just back up to what you said earlier, that you might decide that you want to bring in another producer at some point to augment what you're getting out of this deal.
Sure, yeah.
My understanding is that new producer would have to come in and obtain its own limited winery license to sell out of that location as well.
Yeah, if we were to partner with somebody, presumably they would already have their limited winery license, and then our location would become a satellite location for them as well.
Yes.
So on one property, we would basically have 2 satellite locations for 2 different wineries.
Operating out of the same cider garden, or would you be talking
Yes.
about constructing a
No, it would more than likely be out of the same exact space, which is what makes the approval process usually easier. because it's already gone through the process once and they have obviously said yes. Yeah, it would all be out of the same space.
And you said 15 acres. I'm not sure whether that was 15 acres in apple production or that's dedicated exclusively to the apples.
Yes, we have 15 acres of just apple trees.
Are they cider apples or are they a mix of eating apples?
Most are pick your own apples. We do have some cider apples in place. In fact, this spring our planting was solely cider apples. So we are, I guess, taking steps to have more cider apples, but for the most part it's all been pick your own sweet dessert apples.
Are the pick your own apples the type of apples that they would use in the cider process?
They could use some of them, and they do use some of them in smaller quantities than traditional cider apples, but they could and would use them.
Any questions, John?
I wouldn't even know how to begin to
Relax.
ask them.
Yeah.
Let's say down the road, they make an offer that they want to buy that part of that business. The guy that's got the winery license. Now, where does that leave the township? If all of a sudden it becomes a major commercial business, and they're not involved in it anymore, the Road family's not involved in it anymore because they've taken that section of their business and sold it to this guy here from Boyertown.
Are you talking about selling the 80 by 80 foot
Building and the ability to sell out of that building.
What's your question?
I'm not even sure that we would be able to do that.
Yeah.
Sell just a small space of our property. Or
It is a preserved farm. So you can't split it.
Okay, you cannot subdivide it.
No, it's preserved forever for perpetuity.
Do you have an easement with the Commonwealth?
Yes.
Okay. Agricultural easement?
Yes.
I think what you're alluding to is, we would set, if we set conditions, if we gave approval with certain conditions, that would cover your concern as to, if we made that a condition, it can't be sold to anybody else without coming back here.
I'm going to go one step further. I don't know if we're in a position to put the conditions, enough conditions in to control the situation. I don't know if we have the power to put them in and to enforce. Because whenever you feed people alcohol, it usually causes a problem. Abuse. I don't know if this board should be even, and maybe he could answer the question, maybe, I just don't know if this board has enough authority and can reach out far enough to protect the folks that live around there and the township itself. I don't know.
The only thing the zoning board can do is to place restrictions on the use of them. Enforcement is an LCB matter, state police.
Yeah, but don't forget, you've got a lot of neighbors there. I mean, you got. But
If you ask me what the board's restrictions are, and the restrictions are all the board does is determine if it's an appropriate use of the land and place what restrictions it can upon them. But in terms of the liquor laws, the LCB enforces those. We can't make any assumptions regarding enforcement.
Mall Fitz's been open 10 years now, I think there's been a single police call there. Some of his events had 1,000 people. I mean, and he's selling a lot more than 2 cups at a time.
That's kind of remote, that place. this is not, boy, there's hands up all over here.
Yeah, well, we'll get to you, Rose, but we have to, the board is trying to work this out and ask some questions here.
I don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say. This is, on the surface, it looks simple. But there's nothing simple. Nothing else.
Don, how many acres did you total property?
200 and, well, counting the other piece, there's 275.
I mean, they're on 275 acres. Small business is on 28.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that that's not really any more remote. You've got all houses right across the lane and all houses down across in front of the winery. They're actually more isolated than all the. I'm not saying they're our neighbors. I'm just saying that, it is a 200 acre farm.
See what some of the neighbors have to say.
Yeah, Bob, did you want to ask any questions?
Yeah, I do.
Right?
Jeff, I guess, you appropriate person. Satellites that you were talking about, I know you were saying you're going to be one of the other 4 satellites, are they in place already somewhere else in Conemaugh?
At least, yes, I think yes.
Did you
I know at
consider
least
any of
2
them?
are, yes.
Okay, and did you discuss with them any of these issues? And I'm just following what Joe was saying about it's alcohol. So we know the limitations that you're putting on it, and I respect that.
Mm-hmm.
But, if it's abused, and they had problems, are you aware of problems?
So a similar farm to us, Grimm's Orchard down near Allentown. Basically does about the same thing we do. They're an agritainment business, apple orchard, they have other fruits as well. But the thing that both of us have in common is that we're very family oriented. The types of people that are coming to our farm are moms and dads with children between the ages of 2 and call it 14. And the experiences that Grimm's has had is that the overwhelming majority of customers want to come out, have a drink or two while their kids are romping around on the farm, and then leave and go on their merry way. Grimm's has been up and going for a year, and they have more traffic than we do in terms of the number of guests, and they have had 0 issues with irresponsible drinkers or anything to that effect. So, to answer your question in short, yes, we've spoken with other people, and they do not have issues.
How about looking into your insurance coverage? Is that going to have to change then?
And we have already spoken with our insurance company, and they've given us the okay on this.
So it would be similar in a situation if it was abused, if it was an accident, because we were right on 247, we were right down the road.
Yep.
You're right on your surrounding us, which we expect you to be good neighbors, and we've always considered.
You're honest and good neighbors.
Yeah. So, but you can appreciate our concern.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're happy
Absolutely.
to make sure that it doesn't happen.
And, we are family oriented, and we want to stay that way. We're just trying to give, our guests and the parents a little bit something more that they've been asking for. And, the state law says that, if somebody is drunk or inebriated, you are no longer allowed to serve them alcohol. And to be quite frank with you, I don't think it would ever even come close to that. If our customers look like they're even getting remotely towards not being able to responsibly get their children home or drive through the township, then we're going to pull the plug there.
Have you considered hiring any security to prevent that from happening?
We do have security on our other location already, and it is something that we've considered for the Saturdays and Sundays that we are serving alcohol.
Right. I saw this was what you prepared for the board to review, right? And I know you testified to some of the items that are listed in here.
Mm-hmm.
Is it your understanding or expectation that if the use variance is granted, that these will be conditions as far as your use in terms of the location, in terms of how you go about your business?
Meaning What exactly? Like if we expanded our hours of operation, or we wanted a bigger cider garden, are we?
Yeah.
Is that what you're alluding
Yeah,
to?
any of the items that are listed in here are very specific as to
Yeah.
how your operation is gonna be conducted.
Yep.
And that my concern would be that if the board does grant the variance and they put those conditions in there, that you would abide by them, and if you wanted to change them. For example, some of the things that you're mentioning about another satellite coming in, or other things happening that would change these things, that you would understand that you would have to come back to this board to ask for a change in that situation. I don't want it to be just a blanket thing. And I think
Right.
that maybe addresses what Joe was talking about.
I would say on things like hours of operation, or even the size of the cider garden, that 80 by 80 foot area, I would say that those kinds of things are going to have to scale if our business were to grow. So if there is the demand for us to be open on, Tuesdays and Thursdays, then we may expand that way. And if, an 80 by 80 foot area can't accommodate the number of people that want to be in there safely, I think that we would be forced to expand that area, just even for the safety of our own guests. You don't want to be, an 80 by 80 foot area really isn't all that large.
So you are looking for some flexibility in terms of your.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we know our customers best, and we know what is necessary to keep them safe best. And I would like to be able to make those changes quickly if I had to. Yeah, I would say that answers my question, your question. I want to be able to make the adjustments quickly enough if necessary.
But the other thing that I saw in here that I'm a little confused about was you said hard cider alcohol content will range from 4 to 13%. Why such a big range? I don't understand that.
Yeah, so hard cider, it can range just as a beer can. You can go down to a brewery and get a beer that's 12 or 13%, and they do the same things with hard cider. So this, just the same as beer, most hard ciders are in that 4 to 5, 6, 7% range. When you press apple juice and ferment it, the amount of sugar that's actually in the juice only allows you to get to 6 or 7%. So typically that's where you end up. The only time that you go to those higher percentages is by adding sugar on the front end to drive the alcohol content up on the backside. And the reason for that is just different flavor profiles, basically. If you think about like a dark beer at a brewery, a lot of times there'll be a higher alcohol percentage because it just tastes better that way. So I kind of just